later what Ketchapp does. Nice to meet you all. So this talk is kind of about how, kind of what happens in the top charts. Kind of going over a lot of data about what happens just in the app market. So anyway, can we fix this screen?
Yep.
All right. So Ketchapp is the chief revenue officer at Ketchapp. We're the second largest games publisher in the world, largest one in the United States. So we last year drove about 500 million, over 500 million installs across our network. The only publisher that beat us was Tencent, and we're the fifth largest app developer in the world. So more users have played Ketchapp games than last year, new users than have downloaded Twitter, Snapchat, or played games on Supercell or Zynga or almost any other game developer. I'm also an advisor at Docs, and a lot of the data that I'm going to go over today talks about what happens in the market, and then also going through one of the games that we've launched called 2 Dots, and how 2 Dots kind of played in the ecosystem and everything that's going on in the market. So the games market is generated about $25 billion in revenue last year, and year to date about $3 billion in revenue. This is in USD. And if you look at the number of worldwide submissions, it's kind of going up and to the right. So this is the number of new applications that are being submitted to the App Store on Apple. And the orange line is the number of games that are being submitted on the App Store. So one of the interesting things is this shows the percentage of games, the percentage of games that are being submitted in the App Store. So you can see kind of back in 2012, it was about 20%, and now over the last year it's kind of hovered above 35%, and even peaking up at 40% in some months. So it's getting more and more competitive for game developers to submit applications. This chart is pretty interesting. It shows the monthly change in submissions, month over month, since 2012. So what this tells you is like in March and November and December, where you see the peaks, it's very, very competitive to launch an application. And then the troughs, where the graph comes down, in January, June, September, it's a lot easier to launch applications. So if you're a game developer and you're thinking about launching a game on mobile, these are probably better months to launch. It's going to be less competitive for you. So now let's go over market dynamics in the United States and iOS. In 2015, there were 2.4 billion apps installed 2.4 billion times. Out of all those app installs, 34% of those were games. And if you look at the iOS store, one of the interesting things is this is the monthly installs for games last year. You can kind of see that it's going down, which is weird, right? That's kind of a strange phenomenon. So, for example, if you were to hit, let's say, like number 1 in January 2015, it would require a lot more installs to hit number 1 than, let's say, you were hitting number 1 in September of 2015. And this trend has been going on for like the last 2 or 3 years. So it's a very, very interesting situation in the US marketplace as it's becoming more mature. So what percentage of games broke into the top 100 in 2015? So it's really interesting. So the marketplace is really competitive. If you look at, out of all the new games that made it into the top 100 free that were submitted, it was less than about 1%. So 4 out of every 1,000 games make it into the top 100. It's not a lot of games. Even less make it into the top 10. So 1 out of every 1,000 new games make it into the top 10 in the United States. So it's extremely, extremely competitive, extremely hard, very difficult. This kind of shows you the amount of new, this chart's interesting, it shows you the amount of new games breaking into the top 10, breaking into the top 100. It's an index chart. And if you look at the gray line, is pretty flat. So not a lot changed in the top 100, but in the top 10, you're kind of seeing more games kind of breaking in over the last year, which is interesting. So App Store features, do they help? So what percentage of apps, of the games that broke into the top 10 were featured? Does anyone know? I'll just tell you, it's 63%. So 63% of all games that made it to the top 10 were featured. So it kind of tells you that as developers, we're kind of dependent on the platforms, right? We need platform help. We need to get featured. I don't know if anyone's seen Clash Royale. It's a really awesome feature, and that game's killing it right now. And so it obviously, if you get help from the platforms, it's going to help you launch your game. So, and then prominence of the feature matters, right? Like, so like, you know, you can get a feature that's like way back in the App Store, further behind the App Store. So, out of all the features of the 62% of the features that happen that help these games get into the top 10, how many of them were prominent or on the main page? 100% of them were. So, not only do you need features to like help you get up in the top 10, but you also need a really good feature too, which is interesting. So this chart shows you what percentage of newly released games are getting featured and what percentage of existing games are getting featured. So you can kind of see that a lot of features are actually going to existing games. So if you have games that are that operate like live operations, you're constantly updating them, it's very good for featuring. And you can kind of see here, main App Store features are more geared towards newly released games, but still a lot are going to existing games. This chart's interesting because it shows you, out of all the categories, which the number of games actually in those categories, and the number of featured games. So you can see there's a strong correlation, very strong correlation between getting featured and getting into the top three. So, and also you can kind of see there's also the size of the category, right? Like, so arcade is up into the right, puzzle, action, these are bigger categories. They're getting more features, and they're also making it into the top 10. So this kind of shows you the strong correlation between featuring and getting into the top charts. Another way to look at it is what percentage in these, relative to their size, how many of these, how many applications are getting featured in these categories. So one that sticks out is role-playing. So you see role-playing up there in the top right. It's a very relatively small category, but relative to its size, it's getting more features than let's say family, which is a larger category and it's driving less features. So kind of the type of game that you're making also could play a difference in how you're getting featured, right? And what kind of features you can get, which is interesting. So now I'm going to talk about kind of two dots. Before I do that, though, I want to bring up one point. Is that 3 companies generated 76% of downloads, top 10 downloads in 2015. 3 companies. So that leaves about 24% of downloads for developers like us, unless anyone here works at Facebook, Apple, or Google. So that's not a lot, right? It's just like we don't have a lot of room to grow and generate downloads when a lot of these companies, or release companies, are taking up a lot of the traffic. So what this kind of shows you is there's a zero-sum kind of characteristics within the top 10, right? Because if you're a game developer and then you have maybe some category, I'll explain in a second, but it doesn't leave a lot of room for other games to grow when this is happening. So Thursday, May 29, 2014, this is when we launched Two Dots. This is the team, very happy after they've launched the game. Two Dots was a very successful launch. We hit #1 in 70 countries. We held #1 for 14 days. And as you can see, the chart on the top right is an index chart that shows you kind of, we also stayed within the top 10 in 30 days post-launch, so it was a good launch. This chart shows you the rank change for our network, which at the time was just one game, Dots, and then competitors. So the blue line the orange line is Two Dots. The blue line is Dots Classic, which is another game that we had. So you can kind of see that after we launched Two Dots, Dots Classic increased in rank. And there's no paid traffic, that's completely organic. So just by driving awareness to the store, Two Dots was being featured, and we were driving a lot of traffic, and we're in the top 10. It was also getting us downloads on Dots Classic, which was interesting. And then in the gray line, you can see our competitors are just kind of getting killed, or they're losing rank. You can see a strong decay in their rank. And that competitor index is Piano Tiles, by Tune Mobile, Ruzzle Adventure 2048, which is a Ketchapp game, Candy Crush, and Farm Hero Saga. So you can kind of see that those apps kind of going down as we're commanding more volume in the top 10, which is interesting. This chart's interesting too. I'll explain what it is. It's hard. These are categories, so within the top 10. So we have 4 categories here: arcade, puzzle, action, and strategy. And one of the things to note is that if you look in the middle, the 25% mark, not more than one category is up above 25% at the same time. So this kind of tells you the zero-sum characteristics even within categories that are happening in the top charts. So for example, you kind of see arcade in the beginning, the blue line is going up. And then as it goes down, puzzle, which is the orange line, starts to go up. And then as puzzle comes down, you start to see action go up, the gray line. And we'll go over that in a second. But not more than one category is actually above the 25% mark. And this is partly because what we showed before, 75% of the traffic is going to Apple, Facebook, or Google. So it kind of shows you that for games, you usually have one category up in the top 10 leading or falling off, and maybe another category coming up, and that's usually driven by like one app, which is interesting. So Thursday, June 12, 2014, this is the World Cup. So soccer fever, so the World Cup, largest sports event in the world, heavily featured, promoted by Apple. You can see a lot of the apps here that Apple's featuring. And the app that stood out the most was Watch ESPN. So this app hit #1 in one day, held the rank for 5 days. And then you can kind of see it starts to tank a little bit after, and I'll explain why in a second. And we can kind of look at the same exercise here. So Two Dots, which at the time was still top 10, is the blue line, and then you see Watch ESPN, which is the orange line, and then other World Cup apps, which is the gray line, and that's FIFA, Univision Deportes, Soccer Stars, and FIFA 14 by EA Sports. And you can kind of see it follows like almost a very similar trend to Watch ESPN. And if you look at it closer, this kind of shows you, as a UA manager, at the time I was running user acquisition for Two Dots. This was like the most stressful time of my life, because we're trying to maintain top 10, right? We're trying to get ranked. But then at the same time, it's the World Cup. Everyone's focused on the World Cup. And so how do I drive traffic to our application when everyone doesn't care about it? They care about the World Cup. So you can kind of see, as the orange line, as that comes up, Watch ESPN, the blue line goes down, which is Dots. And as the orange line goes down, you can see the blue line goes back up. So this shows you the zero-sum characteristics within the top 10. It's a balance, a dance between FIFA and Two Dots. And so this happens within the apps, it happens within the categories, and it kind of shows you that because there's all the rest of the traffic is going to, again, Facebook, Apple, and Google, so we're trying to battle for the top position. And the interesting thing is, you see the orange line start to tank, and that's when the United States lost the World Cup. So when the United States lost the World Cup, everyone stopped watching ESPN. No one wanted to watch the World Cup anymore. And bad for the United States, but good for Two Dots. Two Dots came back up. And you can kind of see that the battle for us kind of ended there. That's just an interesting thing. So categories, so we look at the categories, the same thing happened. So the orange line again, that's Two Dots. We're over 30%. And then as that comes down with the World Cup, you see action come up, the gray line. And then the interesting thing is that no two categories. This is between the matching comes back up again later, but between that time, no two categories go above 25%, which was an interesting thing that we pointed out earlier. Just because you can't take more market share because it's already going to Apple, Facebook, and Google. And then you see kind of the World Cup again, as it's people are very interested in it, action games are going up. So Wednesday, January 6th, this is when Candy Crush Jelly Saga launched. So pretty good launch, almost as good as Two Dots. Hit number one, held number one for 8 days, and hit number one in 50 countries. And you kind of see the same thing. So when Candy Crush launched, you can look at the orange line. The blue line is King's comps. So that's Farm Hero Saga, Candy Crush Saga, Blossom Blast Saga, Scrubby Dubby Saga, and another Saga game. And then the competitors, which is Panda Pop, Cookie Jam, Cubed, 1010, and Two Dots. And you can kind of see as they hit number one, actually, in this case, everyone's kind of going down in rank. And then after 15 days, the competitors come back up, and King's games actually continue to decline. An interesting thing here is King was actually running a heavy cross promotion through other apps, and you can kind of look at the category impact. So King is a puzzle game. You can see 4 like arcade games are doing well, and then I think this was Cubed and 1010 were up there. And then as the arcade goes down, you kind of see adventure goes up, and then puzzle, like no two categories are above 25% here either. So it's interesting thing to look at. So we went over 3 kind of quick case studies, and then there's 7 takeaways that I wanted to talk to you guys about. One is the mobile games market is becoming increasingly competitive, right? So we saw in the other chart that just more and more submissions are going to the App Store. It's just the chart's going up and to the right. And even for games, a higher percentage of those submissions, application submissions, are games. So it's not getting easier. Your odds of being in the top 10 are low. So remember, we talked about less than 1%. 1 out of every 1,000 applications make it to the top 10. So that's not a lot. The majority of new games that make it to the top 10 in 2015 had a feature. So remember, over 60% of games that got into the top 10 had a feature. So if you are working with Apple or Google, make sure you have a very good relationship with them. Let them know if you're launching a new game, what you're doing. If you're launching an update to your game, let them know what you're doing. Share your roadmap with them. Do whatever you can to get on the radar. Features and top rank are positively correlated, so it kind of the same thing. So we saw in that bubble chart, there's a strong correlation between features and top ranking. There's no question about it. And the other thing is there's some applications that are more likely to get featured than others because they belong to a category that's less saturated. So for example, like a lot of people make puzzle games, right? A lot of people make arcade games, but not that many developers are making RPG games in the United States, and so those are more attractive to the platforms because it's different. It's not another Match 3 clone. It's not another Saga game. So we just saw some categories are more relative to their size, more likely to receive features than others. Just to kind of talk about that. And then takeaway 6, market dynamics. Among the top 10 exhibit zero-sum characteristics. So when we showed we looked at those charts where some categories like arcade would take over, and then puzzle would take over, and then maybe sports would take over. This is because the market displays these zero-sum characteristics. And that is because the major platforms exacerbate the top 10 market dynamics. So again, remember that Facebook, Apple, Google generated was like 76% of top 10 downloads in 2015. So that doesn't leave a lot for developers to fight over. And I want to thank Prior Data for providing me with most of this data for this presentation. They're a mobile app market intelligence platform from Berlin. So if you need data, Prior Data, interesting, it helped me with this presentation, giving me the data. So feel free to check out their website. I think they'll give, if you sign up, they'll give you free data too. So it's a great startup. And here's my email if anyone has any questions. Send in my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristen.